Today, we're going to dive into something pretty personal. It's this idea I like to call the architecture of early maturity. Basically, it's all about how our earliest experiences can actually build us in a really specific way. We're going to look at 5 key signs that maybe, just maybe, you grew up a little too fast, and what that actually means for you now. So let's get into it. So let me just ask you this, and be honest with yourself for a second. Did you ever feel like you were the little adult in your family? You know, the one who was always the responsible one, the sensible one, maybe just a little too serious for your own good? If that's hitting home, you are definitely in the right place. It's that old soul feeling, right? You might remember feeling just more aware of things, maybe even more weighed down by the world than your friends. You know, while they were worried about playground politics, you were worried about real world stuff, like if the bills were going to get paid. It's a feeling of being kind of different, even from way back then. Well, this whole experience actually has a name, and that's what we're here to do. Give a name to that feeling. We're talking about early maturity. So what is it exactly? Well, early maturity is what happens when a kid takes on adult roles, adult responsibilities, and, this is the big one, adult emotional burdens way, way before they're supposed to. The most important thing to get here is it's not just about being a responsible kid, it's about carrying a weight that was never, ever meant for your shoulders. So how does this actually show up in real life? We're going to walk through 5 telltale signs, and as we go through them, just kind of check in with yourself and ask, does this sound familiar? All right, let's dive into the first sign, and this one is a biggie. First up, chronic responsibility. This is really the foundation, the bedrock of growing up too fast. It's that feeling deep in your gut that if you don't do it, it's just not going to get done. And listen, this goes so far beyond just doing your chores. Think about it. Maybe you were the one making sure your little brother or sister got their homework done because your parents were just too swamped. Or maybe you found yourself acting as the family therapist, trying to mediate fights between the adults. You soaked up all these grown-up worries that a child should never, ever have to deal with. Now let's see how that first one builds directly into our second sign. Number 2 is hyper-independence. It makes sense, right? If you learned early on that you couldn't really rely on other people, well, you learned to rely on yourself and only yourself. It's like building a suit of armor. Does "I've got it" or "I can handle it myself" sound like your life's motto? If you grow up too fast, asking for help can feel almost physically impossible. Leaning on someone else feels uncomfortable, maybe even a little dangerous, because you learned that being vulnerable was a kind of weakness. Okay, on to number 3. This one is very specific, and it's really important to understand. This one's called emotional parentification. Yeah, it's a bit of a fancy term, but all it really means is that the roles got flipped. You, the child, ended up becoming the emotional caretaker for your own parent. Just let this sink in. You became your parent's confidant, therapist, and emotional support system. You were the one they vented to after a hard day. You were the one who had to cheer them up. You were their shoulder to cry on. You basically learned how to manage their emotions before you even had a chance to figure out your own. Now for number 4. Sign number 4 is a deep-seated seriousness. It's like you were born carrying the weight of the world on your little shoulders, and there just wasn't much room left over for being a goofy, carefree kid. Does this ring a bell? You find it really hard to just let loose and be silly. People probably praised you for it, right? Oh, you're so mature for your age, which just encouraged you to be even more serious. And that can make it tough to connect with other kids who just seem so light. And it often comes with this constant low hum of anxiety just running in the background. And finally, that brings us to our 5th sign. Number 5, difficulty with play. Now, this might sound a little strange, but it is so real. If your brain was trained from day one to be useful, to be productive, then unstructured fun with no point to it, that can feel totally foreign. It can even feel stressful. Your mind was wired for doing, not for simply being. Okay, so those are the signs, but the really big question is, why? Why does this happen? Let's get to the why behind it all. And here's the spoiler. It's not because there was something wrong with you. It's because your brain was built for survival. This comparison just says it all, doesn't it? Under typical conditions, a child's brain develops like a garden. It's all about exploration, creativity, making connections. But if your early environment was stressful, your brain didn't have the luxury of being a garden. It had to become a fortress.
Its number one job became scanning for threats, solving problems, and surviving. It became rigid and efficient because it absolutely had to be. So, what do you do with all this? It really all comes down to understanding your personal architecture. This isn't about getting a diagnosis or putting a label on yourself. Nope. This is about getting a copy of your own blueprint. And just having that awareness, that is the first and most powerful step.
And I really want you to hear this. You didn't have a broken childhood. You had a different one. Your foundation wasn't built for a life of ease. It was built for resilience. And that right there is an incredible source of strength. So my final question for you is this. Now that you can see the blueprint, now that you understand your own unique architecture, all of its strengths, all of its fortifications, how are you going to choose to build on it? See, understanding how you were built doesn't define your future. It empowers you to design it. So, what will you create?